In the final months of World War II, Nazi Germany was collapsing under the weight of Allied armies from the west and the Soviets from the east. Cities were burning, supply lines were shattered, and entire divisions were surrendering faster than German headquarters could even record their names. But among the masses of prisoners taken in 1945 were not only exhausted infantrymen. There were also German generals, professional soldiers who had commanded armies, studied modern war, and survived years of brutal combat across Europe. And when these men were questioned after capture, a strange pattern began to emerge. They rarely spoke with fear about American weapons, not the Sherman, not American artillery, not even the bombers that ruled the skies. Instead, many spoke about something more difficult to measure: speed, pressure, relentless movement, and again, one American name surfaced as the most dangerous force they had faced in the West: General George S. Patton. Patton remains one of the most complicated commanders in American history. He was admired, criticized, celebrated, and feared, sometimes all at once, often by the same people. To the public, he was loud, aggressive, and unpredictable. A man whose speeches sounded like thunder and whose ego seemed larger than his tanks. But to the German officers trying to stop the Allied advance, Patton's personality was not the point. His method was. By 1944, the German army in the West was no longer the unstoppable machine that had conquered France. It was a battered force fighting with fewer trained troops, fewer tanks, and almost no air power. And yet even in that weakened state, German commanders were still capable of inflicting terrible damage, especially when given time to build defensive lines. Time was Germany's last weapon, and Patton, more than any other Allied commander, refused to give it to them. Patton's Third Army fought like a weapon designed to keep moving. His philosophy was simple: a retreating enemy is most vulnerable when he is still confused. If you pause, he reorganizes. If you wait, he digs in. If you slow down, he becomes dangerous again. Patton understood that modern warfare wasn't just about destroying enemy units. It was about breaking their rhythm. Many Allied operations in the war were built on careful planning and heavy preparation. Secure the flank, build supplies, bring in reserves, then move forward. Patton had little patience for that style of war. He attacked while others organized. He moved while others paused, and he exploited every gap in the front line like it was a door left unlocked. German intelligence repeatedly expected Patton to stop, and he didn't. They expected him to consolidate after capturing ground. He pushed deeper. They assumed weather would slow him. He advanced anyway. They believed fuel shortages would force him to pause. He found another way forward. To German commanders, this was maddening, because defense in depth depends on time. You absorb pressure, fall back, regroup, and counterattack. But Patton's tempo made every defensive plan feel outdated before it was even executed. Nowhere was this clearer than during the most desperate German gamble of the entire Western campaign: the Battle of the Bulge. In December 1944, Germany launched a surprise offensive through the Ardennes. It was a last attempt to split the Allied armies and force a negotiated peace. For a moment, it worked. American lines were cracked, roads were jammed with retreating units, and critical towns were surrounded. One of them was Bastogne. Many Allied commanders believed relieving Bastogne would take weeks. The roads were icy. The weather was brutal. The front lines were unclear. Everything about the situation screamed delay. But Patton did something the German generals didn't believe was possible. He took the Third Army and turned it. Not a small unit, not a single corps. An entire army. He pivoted nearly 90 degrees and attacked north into the German flank, through winter conditions, through chaos, against an enemy that still had teeth. And he did it in days. For German commanders watching this from the other side, the message was unmistakable. Patton wasn't fighting the war like a normal man. He was fighting the clock. After the war, German officers described Patton as dangerous not because he had more firepower than other Americans, but because he never allowed the battlefield to settle. He kept pressure on continuously. He made retreat feel permanent. He made defense feel impossible. And perhaps most importantly, he made German commanders feel like they were always behind. Even when Germany still had positions to fight from, Patton's speed turned organized defense into panicked reaction. Then there was something else that surprised many German prisoners. The way Patton treated them. German propaganda had spent years depicting Americans as weak, undisciplined, or revenge-driven. Many German officers expected humiliation or chaos when captured. Instead, what they often encountered was a system that, at least in the West, was highly controlled, rules-based, and professional. Patton himself believed in the identity of the soldier. He saw war as something brutal but professional, fought between armies, not personal enemies. That attitude didn't make him gentle, but it did make him predictable in one way. He respected military professionalism, even in defeated opponents. To German generals, this was strange, because they were used to a regime that punished failure, destroyed reputations, and treated surrender as betrayal. Now they were facing an enemy who, while destroying them on the battlefield, still treated captured officers with structure and discipline. And this created an uncomfortable truth. Some of the most blunt respect Patton received did not come from American newspapers or political leaders. It came from the German officers who had tried, and failed, to stop him. But this perspective never fully became popular history in America, because Patton did not fit the clean image of a hero. He was difficult. He was controversial. He spoke too freely. He offended people in power. His personality caused problems that did not disappear when the war ended. In wartime, that aggressiveness made him lethal. In peacetime, it made him inconvenient. And then, only months after victory, Patton died in a car accident in December 1945. Before he could shape his legacy, before he could defend himself, before history could fully separate the general from the headlines. Yet on the battlefield, his impact was undeniable. German officers didn't describe Patton as perfect. They didn't describe him as polite. They described him as effective. And in war, that is the most honest evaluation there is. Because sometimes the clearest understanding of a commander doesn't come from allies or politicians. It comes from the enemy, the people who faced him across ruined roads and burning fields, and learned what happens when a man refuses to slow down. That was Patton's real weapon. Not tanks, not artillery, momentum. And once Patton had momentum, German commanders knew they were already losing. If this changed how you see Patton and the Western Front, drop your thoughts in the comments. And subscribe for more true war stories and forgotten history from the battlefield.